Autism is a pervasive developmental disorder that typically appears during the first 3 years of life. Autism affects a person's communication, cognition, and social interaction. Behaviors one with autism may possess can be grouped into 3 categories: social interaction, communication, and stereotype patterns of behavior like interests and activities. To receive a diagnosis of autism, one must display severe or pervasive impairment in these 3 categories, which must be relative to the individual's developmental and intellectual levels. They do not have to be severely impaired in all, but can be mildly impaired in most, as behaviors vary from person to person. Thus, the need for the Gilliam Autism Rating Scales, or GARS. Sarah and I will be reporting on the 2nd edition due to limited resources at the clinic, but there is an updated 3rd edition that is very similar.
The author of the GARS-2 was James E. Gilliam. It was produced in 2005 by ProEd with the address of 8700 Shoal Creek Boulevard in Austin, Texas, zip code 78757. One can purchase this tool from Pearson Assessments or on Amazon.com. The purpose of this assessment is to identify people with autism from people with other severe behavioral problems. In this assessment, professionals and caregivers are provided sample instruction objectives for behavioral problems. This tool is then used as support for creating and writing individualized education programs, IEPs, and behavior management plans. Goals and objectives included on this assessment serve as samples for these plans. 5 uses can be: 1. Help identify people who have autism. 2. Assess person referred for serious behavior problems. 3. Document progress in areas of disturbance. 4. Target goals for change and intervention of IEP. And 5. Measure autism in research.
This assessment tool is a norm-referenced assessment, meaning it measures the skills of the norming group, which is those diagnosed or who present behaviors relating to autism. This assessment was normed on 1,107 representative participants with autism between the ages of 3 and 22 from 48 states. In this assessment, there are 42 clearly stated items that are divided into 3 subscales that describe specific, observable, and measurable behaviors. These goals and objectives are included on the guide for each of the 42 items that are not necessary to give the assessment but are helpful and coincide with treatment plan solutions described after the assessment has been given. This assessment is quick and takes only about 5 to 10 minutes to complete.
A parent interview is provided so examiners can interview parents about their child's development during the first 3 years of life. This assessment can also be completed by parents in the home, not just professionals in school. Those giving the assessments, parents, teachers, other individuals, need to have knowledge of the individual's behavior or by those who have the greatest opportunity to observe the student. A list of subscale items to watch for include: 1. Stereotype behavior subscale, 2. Communication subscale, and 3. Social interaction subscale.
There aren't exactly extra tangible items needed for this assessment. The person given the assessment must have training and experience working with individuals with autism. The examiner can be a school psychologist, educational diagnostician, autism specialist, SLP, or similarly trained professional who knows how to interpret quantitative data and qualitative info to use and to utilize that information to diagnose autism. The items provided in this assessment tool include an examiner's manual, a summary and response booklet, and an instructional objective sheet, which is not required. Sometimes one or more people may be needed to complete the assessment due to different knowledge of the client. Different professionals can administer different subscales if needed. For example, the SLP could administer the communication subtest, whereas the teacher may administer the stereotype behaviors and social interaction subscales. There are also 8 rules to follow when scoring this assessment tool. 1. Rate the student using the GARS-2. 2. Convert the raw scores to subscale standard scores and percentiles, which are given in the examiner's manual. Then you must graph this information. 3. Determine which of the 3 subscales the student scores 1 or more standard deviations above the mean. 4. Of the 1 or more standard deviations, determine which behaviors constitute primary concern under that subscale. These are the behavioral targets for intervention. 5. If the student doesn't receive any standard deviations above the mean, determine which behaviors receive the highest scores. These are the behavioral targets for intervention. 6. Locate the goals and objectives for the target behaviors list. 7. Choose objectives that relate to the target behaviors. And 8. Share the goals, objectives, and intervention strategies selected for the student with those involved in the student's education program. For each of the 3 subscales, this scoring guide is to be used to determine the severity of the disorder, which is computed by the standard scores and percentiles. An examiner can assess the client in one of 4 ways during each subscale assessment. If the individual receives a 0, it means they have never behaved in this manner. If the individual receives a 1, it means they have behaved in this manner 1 to 2 times per 6-hour observation period. If they receive a 2, this individual has behaved in this manner 3 to 4 times per 6-hour observation period. And if they receive a 3, the individual has behaved in this manner 5 to 6 times per 6-hour observation period.
So I wanted to get on here and show you a demonstration of how you would score on the GARS-2. Since we can't use the actual assessment form, we wanted to show you virtually. So let's go ahead and get started. This is for subscale 1, which is stereotype behaviors. The directions read, rate the following items according to the frequency of occurrence. Use the following guidelines for your ratings. So these are what you would score down at the bottom. A 0 means never observed, so you have never seen the individual behave in this manner. 1 is seldom observed. Individual behaves in this manner 1 to 2 times per 6-hour period. 2, sometimes observed. Individuals behave in this manner 3 to 4 times per 6-hour period. And 3, frequently observed. Individual behaves in this manner at least 5 to 6 times per 6-hour period. Then you're going to circle the number that best describes your observations of the individual's typical behavior under ordinary circumstances, in most places with familiar people and in usual daily activities. Remember to rate every item. If you are uncertain about how to rate an item, delay the rating and observe the individual for a 6-hour period to determine your rating. Remember, every item should receive a score. So since I don't have anybody with me, I'm just going to kind of role play this and pretend I will read through these and then score, and then I'll show you how you would score at the bottom. So 1, avoids establishing eye contact, looks away when eye contact is made. We're going to rate that a 1. Stares at hands, objects, or items in the environment for at least 5 seconds. 2. Flicks fingers rapidly in front of eyes for periods of 5 seconds or more. 1. Eats specific foods and refuses to eat what most people usually will eat. 3. Licks, tastes, or attempts to eat inedible objects like a person's hand, toys, books. 2. Smells or sniffs objects. 1. Whirls, turns in circles. 2. Spins objects not designed for spinning. 1. Rocks back and forth while seated or standing. 3. Makes rapid, lunging, darting movements when moving from place to place. 2. Prances. 1. Flips hands or fingers in front of face or at sides. 2. Makes high-pitched sounds or other vocalizations for self-stimulation. 1. And lastly, slaps, hits, or bites self or attempts to injure self in other ways. We're going to go 0 on that one. So from here, what you would do is you would add up how many were never observed, put a 0, add up how many were seldom observed, and put that score there, and you do that so on and so forth. Then you get your stereotype behaviors total raw score. From there, you'll go on and complete subscale 2, then subscale 3, and then you will add them up at the end to assess if your patient, how severe that autism is. So yeah, here's our demonstration.
The tasks included on this assessment tool rely on the examiner to do most of the work. Basically, the job of the examiner is to observe the child's behavior and then rate them using the information provided on the summary and response booklets. These observations could be made during play, classroom activities, speech class, or in their home, depending on who is reporting behaviors for each subscale. As previously mentioned, there are 3 subscales included on this assessment tool. Examples of observation tasks for stereotype behaviors include staring at their hands or other objects for 5 or more seconds and rocking back and forth while being seated or standing. Examples of observation tasks for communication include repeating words and phrases over and over or looking away to avoid the speaker when their name is called. Examples of observation tasks for social interaction include becoming upset when their routine has been changed, or they don't imitate when imitation is required, like in games or learning activities.
The GARS-2 is appropriate for individuals ages 3 to 22 years who have severe behavioral problems that may be indicative of autism.
There isn't an exact curriculum per se that coincides with this assessment, but there are goals and objectives that are given for clinician use that align with each subskill. It's up to the examiner and other professionals providing therapy if these goals and objectives are wanted for use or for support in creating an IEP or behavior management plan. For example, if a child is observed frequently rocking back and forth during the observation portion of the stereotype behavior subscale, the manual suggests specific goals and objectives that would be useful to decrease this behavior. The main goal is to decrease rocking. The objectives suggested are as follows. A, the student will decrease the number of episodes of rocking, and B, when told to stop rocking within 3 seconds, the student will stop rocking.
Continuing on, never consider a child's age when making GARS-2 ratings. The normative data takes this into account already. There is also an updated version of this assessment, the GARS-3. It includes 56 items instead of 42 and is divided into 6 subscales instead of 3. Those 6 subscales are as follows: 1. Restrictive and repetitive behaviors, 2. Social interaction, 3. Social communication, 4. Emotional responses, 5. Cognitive style, and 6. Maladaptive speech.